changed your rear bearings, and now you have an ABS, an ESP, and a little peel out squiggly traction light. And let's see what we're going to do about it. Today, after changing my rear main bearings, we're going to take a look at the ABS system. I'm going to change the ABS sensors. While I'm at it, my PowerStop brakes have come in, so I'm going to change out the brakes and the rotors, and I got something else that I might do today. But thanks for watching. I'm Matt, and you just tuned into a Florida Jeep ride. How to change your rear brakes and ABS sensors. Easy peasy. Got my tools set out, socket set, ratchet sets, some pneumatics, got some jacks. To start off with, I picked these up on Amazon. I'm gonna put my jack stands on those. And that's our ABS sensors. We're gonna replace both of those on the back. One front wheel hub assembly. We have PowerStop brakes, caliper boots. Here we have
heavy duty brakes.
The rear brakes for the PowerStop. It's the same size, but if you notice, it's got some grooves and some holes through here. What this is supposed to do is it's supposed to clear out the mud. And I have these style brakes on the front, and they've done really well. So they're bigger, better brakes designed for trucks and towing. The front brake doesn't have this big open area here. This is for the emergency brake assembly, because the emergency brakes are going in there. And I've already changed all that, and this is what bolts up to the axle. Pretty easy thing to change. This is labeled pretty clear. Rear passenger side, double clear. It's up on jacks to get this axle out of the tube. So it slides like this, and it's going to pull the axle out. Just like that. Oh, time to cut the bearing off. Try not to touch the axle as best you can. Put a groove in it. Use your chisel. Knock it open a bit. There you go. That's another part out. Now you get the retainer off. Now I have clean access to the race itself. The race is going to be the hardest part to get off because you don't want to get into the axle. So most people cut an X. So let's start with that. So why did I just cut off a $50 bearing? Because of this seal. This is the axle seal, and I put it on backwards when I press the bearings on. The inner part is supposed to face the inside of the axle. The flat outside is toward the wheel. I put it on backwards. It fell apart in 1 week. So I couldn't find any other thing to do to get the bearings and retainer off other than to cut them off. $50 part. So when you put your axle together, make sure you put it on right so it doesn't cost you 50 extra bucks. Almost there.
That'll scare you.
Yeah, buddy, that pipe almost hit me in the head. 15 tons pushing down on that bearing and retainer to get it on the axle. If you're doing this yourself and you don't have a press, you ain't gonna get it done. This axle had leaked differential fluid through there because the axle was pinched. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reinstall the axle. I'm gonna go ahead and change out the ABS sensors. So the ABS sensors ordered online, they were around 12 bucks a piece. They do come in a package like this. There is a little bit of grease in here. This ABS sensor is going to be held on with a very small socket, more than likely. If you want to replace the existing bolt, they do supply you with a new little Allen screw to go in there. What happened probably that caused my ABS light to go on was more than likely that this oil had come in and gotten onto the sensor, and that caused it to fail. Now, I just changed the bearings, so the ABS sensor's coming on. I'm gonna go ahead and replace them because they're not that expensive. So to do that, the first thing you want to do is take out, of course, your old ones. Clean up the area. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Then take a little bit of that lube that they gave you. And the lube, from what I understand, the lube is only supposed to be right on the end of the connection. Just a little bit right here, because you don't want any kind of corrosion or anything getting in there and causing it to lose connection. So those are going to go on after I push the axle in. To start with, before I put the axle in, I'm gonna go ahead and put a little bit of grease in this tube so that I got a place for that seal to ride. And wipe off the outside, because I do not want any getting on the ABS sensor when I put it in. Take your axle, lift it up, make sure everything's clean, debris free. Put the axle carefully in. You don't want to slam it in because the other end is another seal. So you kind of gotta tilt it, find where it goes in. Once it goes in, you're gonna push this in. Some people have hit this with a dead blow hammer. It lines up with this bracket, and then it goes in. All right, now that the axle should just slide in, the bolts are coming out the back. So you should have your 4 bolts that are 18 millimeter. That'll hold the hub assembly and the bearings and the seal and everything in. Hopefully, I didn't pinch the seal or damage the seal. And if I successfully put it in, then it should be good to go. The locking nuts, they're kind of rounded at that goes to the outside, and this flat surface goes to the inside. If you're having a hard time putting it on and it's acting like it's cross-threaded, you probably got the bolt upside down. Just a real quick info. down like I would be putting on a tire. A little bit on each side. Hopefully that way I don't pinch the seal or anything. Next up for me is putting the ABS sensor on. The ABS sensor is held on by a small bolt. Pretty much only goes in one way. Got the grease on there. Put your new sensor in. Take your little 8mm bolt. Bring it on in. Get your 8mm socket and tighten that up. So your hub is now in. Your ABS sensor is in. Last thing you want to do is plug in, take off the old one, plug in the new one, make sure it's plugged in properly. Once you get it in, you can push the little tab. If you don't push the little tab right and put it all the way in, it could come off. Then you're going to have ABS sensor. Now I can see the sensor is right next to those teeth. And have it focused and have you zoom in and be out of focus. PowerStop Evolution ceramic disc brake pads with hardware kit. And these are the old ones. So you can see the difference. These ones are pretty much almost gone. There's a very small lip there versus this one, a lot bigger. A C-clamp to push the caliper in. So piece right here, that is a brake squealer. What the brake squealer is supposed to do is that when the brake gets down to a certain point, it'll start squealing with this. It'll make a squealing noise. That just means you really should have changed your brakes a while ago. On the clips, you'll notice a vertical wall right here, and then a wall. Your folded lip goes over the flat part. You don't want it to go into the vertical wall. It won't exactly stay. So there's also a rear clip right here. Those are for when you want to pull them out if they get stuck in there, and that holds them in place. So the shoe fits in. The little pieces of metal are sharp. You could cut your finger. Be patient. Put it together. Here's a real big tip when you're doing your brakes. Take a lot of pictures of the assembly before you take it apart. Specifically, if you're over here dealing with the emergency brake assembly, this has a lot of little parts. But let's go ahead and put the new rotors in. So this is the rear passenger side. The rotor just goes onto the hub, just like that. Now I'm going to do a check on my emergency brakes, which need to be expanded out. So I'm going to expand out my emergency brakes a little bit at a time. You can adjust your emergency brakes through the back. There is a window that's back here. It's a little rubber tab, and that little rubber tab you can pull out, and then you can stick the screwdriver in here through that hole, and you can move this gear. You see how the screwdriver is? And that allows you to move the gear. And you kind of just click it a little bit at a time, and that gear is going to either go up or down, and that's how you can actually adjust your emergency brake. So these 18mm bolts are going back on to hold the caliper back on. So those two bolts to hold the caliper on, torque specs are listed below. If you can get a torque wrench in there. If not, use the German method, good and tight. With my caliper assembly together, my new brakes are on. The new rotors are on and everything's turning. The first time I hit the brakes, these are gonna compress on in. Hey, well that's it. Gonna lower the Jeep down, take it out for a test run. Let's hope that this fixed the ABS sensors. Let's hope that this fixed the rear axles that had bearings that were squealing. And let's hope that the seals all worked. A couple of real key things to do. One, make sure that you put your bearings on the right way and the seals on the right way. Because once they're on, the only way to get them off is to cut them off. So at about 60 bucks a pop, you don't want to make any mistakes. Lastly, I'm not a professional Jeep mechanic. I'm just here to help you out and hopefully give you some hints and tips on how to do it yourself. Thanks for watching. Have a great time. If the Jeep is all working, then I'm going trail riding on Saturday. See you then.